Alright guys, this is a tank rig tutorial for Maya. I'm going to show you how you can set up your wheels and treads so that they can move in sync with wherever you drive your tank. I'm also going to show you how you can set up a hull suspension system so you can shift the weight of your tank, and a very reliable, no flip, no fuss turret system using 2 aim constraints. And it also has a fire attribute with an automatic recoil, and that recoil reacts to whichever direction the tank is facing. So there's a lot to cover and we'll get right into it, but just keep in mind that this rig is not easy to achieve at all. So if you're new to Maya or rigging in general, this video may confuse or frustrate you because there's a lot going on. And I'll be moving quite quickly, and assuming that you do know the rigging basics, assuming you've skinned a joint to a mesh before, you've set up a constraint, things like that. You can always rewatch parts if you need to, but again, I suggest that you know those rigging basics before moving on. This is my first tutorial, so please go easy on me. I hope it helps you in some way and you learn something, and hopefully it puts you in a likey or subscribey mood. So we'll see how it goes. The tutorial is broken into 4 videos, and each video covers a different piece. First video is the treads. We're going to set up both treads and get them working along a path. Second video focuses on the wheels and getting them working in all directions, and we also will link them up together. The third video, we will set up the hull suspension system. And the fourth and final video, we will set up the turret and the automatic fire and recoil. I'm also going to talk about setting the rig up so the scene's clean and organized. And right at the end, I will do a quick little animation and export it, so to show you the process. So it makes it very easy when you rig it like this to export it to FBX or Alembic if you want to put it into a game. So yeah, we're going to get right into this, and you want to download this tank from my website. So you don't have to sign up, there's no crap. Just download the file and join in. I'll put the link below, and inside you'll find 2 files. One of them is an expression, which we'll be using in video 2 to set up the wheels, and a Maya file. And this Maya file loads just like this. And this is exactly the same tank as the one I just showed you, except one very minor detail. This one doesn't work. Haha. Everything's been taken apart, but all the pieces are in place and organized in groups that coincide with each of the 4 videos. So let's get right into the tread video. You can go ahead and hide the other groups. We're going to focus on the first part. So the first object we're going to talk about is this template tread mesh. Now what this is here for is it kind of represents the treads that would be on the tank model that you're using if you're not using this one. They generally get hand placed by the modeler and gives you an idea of where they would be. You're not actually going to rig the treads in this position. So what you're going to do is you're going to actually just break one of the pieces off, center it all nice, and do it that way. This is useful because it tells you the shape that you're going to be drawing your curve, because this is a curve-based setup. So, and when you draw this curve, you want to make sure that you use as few points as possible, but you want to keep the integrity of the curve, obviously. And the other thing is make sure you have points underneath all of your wheels. That's very important because we're going to be setting up wheel controls, and we need those points directly under the wheels. And the other thing that this tread mesh is useful for is it tells you how many tread pieces you need to fill this curve. In this case, there's 20 on each side, so 40 total, but we're just going to do one at a time. So 20 tread pieces fill this curve. Alright, we can just go ahead and delete that now, as long as you've extracted your tread piece. The next thing we're going to talk about is a locator that you need to create and place it in the center of your curve path. This locator needs an attribute. I just called it tread cycle, and you can do that by modify add attribute. And make sure you create a float attribute because we need it to be decimal values. So once you've got this locator in place, you're going to go ahead and select that and your curve, duplicate it for the other side, and then you want to make sure that you name these. So you can name them whatever you want, but just make sure that you are consistent with a naming system for your, for the sides. So in this case, I'm just using an L underscore prefix and an R underscore prefix for the other side. So makes life a bit easier later. Once you've got those set up, you can move on to your tread. So we've got our extracted tread piece, center it nicely, and place a joint right in the middle. Now you can place your joint wherever you want. If your tread piece has hinges on the side, you want to move your joint to where, in line with the hinge piece. That's fine. But for this, we're just gonna place it in the center. Now once you've got that set up, you want to make sure these are also named correctly. So whatever you want to call it with your prefix that indicates your side, and also a suffix for these. You want to put a number at the end, just 1. Then you're going to duplicate those for the other side. So you got your right side as well. Make sure you have that 1 at the end. It's really important because we're going to duplicate these now 20 times. So you don't want to go in and rename every one of these pieces. So we're going to go edit, duplicate special. And the option box pops up. You want to make sure that you have smart transform turned on. Then just hit apply and then move these and leave a gap. You want to keep doing this. You don't even have to count because you can just take note of the number at the top there. And we have 20, which means we have 40 in total, 20 both sides. We want to merge these tread pieces into one mesh because we're starting to get a lot of pieces to deal with here. So I want to clean this up. So we're going to grab all of these mesh pieces, go to polygons, combine. Now you'll notice that when you actually combine this, we've still got a whole ton of these empty transform things that are lying around from the merge or from the combine. So we can get around having to clean these up by either using the optimize scene size tool. Usually you can just go ahead and do that, but in this case we can't because we have a lot of loose nodes in these other groups that we're going to be using for later tutorials, so you don't want to be deleting any of those. A workaround for this, something I actually do quite often whenever I use the combine tool, is I just create a empty group, and for some reason I always seem to call it crap. Anyway, select all of our mesh pieces and move it into the crap group, and then select all of our mesh pieces while they're in that group, and now combine them. Delete history, and now you'll see that all of those loose nodes, they're just kept in this one group. So you can just delete the group to clear them out. So I'm just going to snag the name, rename our mesh, and we can go ahead and delete this crap group, and I'm just going to move it at the top to keep things a little bit easier to work with. Now we've got our mesh, we're going to go ahead and skin these joints to that mesh. So we're going to go up to animation, skin, bind skin, smooth bind, select joints at the top here under the bind to option, and max influences you want to set to 1. Just hit apply. Now what we just did is allowed these joints to kind of skin themselves, and we won't even need to adjust any point weights because of that gap we left. Saves us a bit of time, and I don't think anyone actually likes point weighting. So now we're going to place each tread piece onto our curve path, and we're going to be using a tool called motion paths. So you're going to use the animate tab, go down to motion paths, and then the attach to motion paths option box. This brings up this window where we can now adjust all of these settings. So you're going to take a look at your joint, and you see that our front is Z or Z. So you want to make sure that your front axis is set to match that. So set that to Z or Z. And your up axis should be Y. It's already set up fine. And we need to invert the up. And the last thing we need to change is our world up type. We want to change it to object up, and we're going to use our locator, which was strategically placed in the center of this curve for a reason. What it's going to do is it's going to control the orientation of the treads on this axis. So as they're coming around, it's going to stop any kind of flipping. So it's really important. So we're going to use this left tread up object, copy the name and paste it in your world up object input. And now we're going to select our first tread joint and our curve and hit apply. Now it gets attached to our curve, and it should look like this. If it's flipped or oriented the wrong way, just undo it and play with the settings until you get it looking right. You can also go into the motion path and play with these settings once it's already attached, but I would suggest getting it right in the options, because then you don't have to actually go through and tweak those settings on every tread. It'll get a little bit tedious, just adds an extra step. So get it right here. When this comes in, you're going to notice there's an animation already on the motion path. So we're going to go ahead and delete that. We don't need that. I'm going to move this over here because we're going to be using that quite a few more times. And now we're going to open the node editor, window node editor. Set your display to no shapes and extender shapes. Turn those off because it gets quite cluttered in there otherwise. Right, so now we're going to select our tread joint and frame the input. You'll see everything that gets created and connected. We have the motion path node and also these double linear nodes that get created. Now these nodes are pretty redundant actually. They're not actually needed anymore in newer versions of Maya. I think it must have been a really old thing, but they've never removed it. So you can go ahead and delete these. They just cause a bit of a annoyance while they're connected. They're harmless, but they will cause a cycle check warning. And the reason for that is because we see a cycle here. The output of this joint goes into this double linear, and then the output of the double linear goes right back into the joint. So it's causing this cycle, and the cycle check system in Maya just kind of picks that up. So it gives you a warning for no reason really. So you can just go ahead and remove these and just reconnect the all coordinates directly into the translate. Now that kind of repairs that connection and it works totally fine now. If you select this joint again, under your motion path, I'm going to talk about this U value attribute, which is the main attribute they're going to be dealing with. And if you hold Control, middle click, drag, you can move this tread piece around the curve, but it stops at 1. So this is a bit of a pain. If you want this to be a cycle, we want to be able to keep moving this tread. We want the tread to be continuous. This is going to be a bit of a problem, so we get around that by using a set driven key. So we want to go to the animate set driven key set option and get this window here, and we're going to select our locator, load driver, and our tread cycle attribute is going to be driving our motion path U value. So we're going to go ahead and set a key. I'm just going to make sure both values are set to 0. We're now going to set a key. When you set that key, you'll notice two things get created. We have our set driven key animation curve that gets connected, and a position marker right here, which is that little 0 there. You need to have at least one attached to the curve. So we're just going to go ahead and hide that one for now, but we're going to rename it. I'm just going to call it our left tread position marker. And this animation is very important that we name this same way we name the treads, with a number at the end. So we're going to call this left tread anim 01. There we go, something like that. And we're going to continue building this curve. Like we've only got 1 point on it right now. So we need to set our tread cycle to 1 and our motion path, the U value, to 1 as well. And we're just going to finish that curve by adding a second point to it. Set key, and then you can go ahead and close the set driven key window. Now you can open up your graph editor. You can see that the curve that we created has a spline interpolation, so we need to change this to linear. And also to create the cycle on it, we need to go to curves, pre-infinity cycle, and curves again, post-infinity cycle. We can now use our tread cycle attribute holding control and middle click drag, you can now drag this around continuously. And you can do it as many times as you want. So that is one tread piece now set up. Then we're going to move on to the next joint. So just make sure you kind of set the tread cycle value up a little bit, because they all tend to stack in the same place. So it just makes it easier when you're selecting these joints. So put that over there somewhere. For the next tread joint, we're going to just select it and then your curve. And we're going to go hit apply again in our motion path options. We see it attached in the right spot. You're just going to go ahead and hit frame the inputs. And we're going to have that same setup that we kind of saw just now. So we can go ahead and delete these double linear nodes and then plug in the all coordinates from the motion path into the tread joint translation. Now this animation here that's plugged in is that same animation I deleted when I right clicked and hit delete earlier. So you can just delete it there. So we don't need that animation. And now we're going to select the joint we're working on and the previous joint that we worked on and just hit frame again. And we have the set driven key animation that we're going to duplicate. Now we're going to connect the left tread locator, the tread cycle attribute. We're going to plug that into this new curve, into the input, and the output is going to go into the new motion path U value. And these position markers right here, I'm just going to move to the side for a moment, and we'll come back to those. So select the duplicated set driven key curve, open the graph editor again, grab the curve. You need to shift it over by a fraction, and that fraction is 1 divided by however many tread pieces that we have around there. So each tread piece is going to have a distance between the next tread piece of 1/20th, which is 0.05. So all we need to do is just add 0.05 to our points, then it shifts over into its correct place. So now if we move that tread cycle attribute, you can see that they move together. Just going to move that down there for a moment, or how about we move that up there? There we go. I'm a bit limited for space here. Sorry. Now we can grab those position markers and just delete them. Next tread piece, number 3. Grab the joint and the curve. We're going to hit apply. Going to frame it. And now we're going to delete these double linears and then reconnect our all coordinates into the translate. Then we're going to delete this animation that comes with it. And now we're going to select the joint that we're working on and the previous joint we worked on. Frame them both. Duplicate the set driven key animation. Link the locator's tread cycle into the input of the curve and the output into the new motion path U value. And then we get the curve show up in the graph editor. And we're going to now shift that over another 0.05. So it's 2/20ths. We got 0.1. And we go 1.1. So now we got 3 of them all linked up. We can go ahead and delete these position markers. And then we're going to move on to the next one. So tread joint, curve, apply, frame. Go ahead and delete your double linear nodes. All coordinates into translate. Delete your animation, comes with it. Select your tread joint and the one that you worked on before. Hit input, duplicate the animation, the set driven key animation. Tread cycle attribute from the locator into the input of the curve and the output into the new motion path U value. Shift the curve over 0.05 and then just delete those position markers. Alright, so I'm going to do one more. Hopefully you are seeing a pattern emerging here. Just want to make sure that sometimes when you frame these, the joint shows up at the other side like this. So if you ever want to just grab all of them in one go, be careful because there is another connection under there that you will be selecting and you don't want to delete this. Just make sure that you grab them individually, delete them, and then carry on with the all coordinates to translate. Delete the animation, frame, duplicate the animation, tread cycle from the locator into the new curve, input, and the output into your motion path, like the new one you just created. So it goes into the U value. We're going to shift our curve another 0.05 and then delete our position markers. We can see now 5 of our tread pieces are working together. Alright, so you just go ahead and go through each one of these. I'm not going to do all of them on this video because it will bore you to death. So when you actually get through all those, you move over to the other side and everything stays the same as you did for the first chain you did there. But the only thing that you need to change is just make sure your world up object is set to the right side, your right locator, because if you don't, you're going to get an issue show up. So if I grab this one and the right curve and hit apply, you can see that the tread is facing this one, this locator right here. And you also get a good look at what these locators are actually doing here. That's why it needs to be in the center, because this locator stops these treads from flipping. So that's a pretty cool little setup. So once you get every tread on both sides complete, you should have something that looks like this. I went ahead and parented the joints to a group just to kind of clean things up. But yeah, they should move all together when you grab both locators and control middle click drag your attribute. So make sure you have everything set up to this point, and then we're going to go ahead and move on to the next video. And in the next video, we are going to set up the wheels, and the wheels will be moving in sync with wherever we drive our arrow control there. And we're going to also have the opposing rotation on either side of the tank wheels. And then once we've set that up, we're going to connect the treads that we did in this video and everything moving together like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. If you found this video helpful, please like it, and if you would like to see more 3D tutorials like this, please subscribe and I'll gladly create more.